Hello to you, welcome back to the channel, and I hope I find you well. Welcome to Weir Yard here in the loft with me, Jenny Kirk, and today we've got something a little bit different for the Friday video. I'm going to be looking at my top 5 choices of bargain ready-to-run locomotives. That is to say, locomotives that are available right now at the time of filming for really quite favourable prices. Now, I know that in these times a lot of people are really lamenting the upward pressure on prices. So I've had a good look around, and these are the 5 locomotives that I can find that I think offer particularly good value for money for what they are. And for each and every one of these, we've got an affiliate link down below which takes you to where you can find them at a pretty good price. And also don't forget that today's video is sponsored by Train-O-Matic, makers of DCC decoders and accessories that are designed by enthusiasts for enthusiasts. And with each of these locomotives, I will be mentioning which DCC decoder is suitable for DCC fitting them. So without further ado, come with me, and I'm looking forward to showing you my top 5 bargain ready-to-run steam locomotive picks. The first locomotive that I've picked today is actually the Terrier class. Now, this is one that we've recently done some reviews on, and I've been really pleased with the model that is available ready to run. It's a far cry from the old version that subsisted in the range for pretty much 20 plus years, and this is fully retooled up to a high quality modern standard. Now, Hornby and Rails of Sheffield in conjunction with Dapol have brought these out, but the one that I've got here to illustrate is one of the Hornby ones in the Brighton livery. And actually, I thought that for the money that these were really quite good. I've seen them in the sales down as far as £70, and they range upwards to probably hovering around the £80 mark, which for this day and age, a brand new ready to run tank locomotive at a not discounted price, that's the regular selling price in pretty much all shops, I thought was actually staggeringly good value for money. You get a lot of locomotive for your money despite its diminutive size, and there is a huge amount of detail in this. It really has got all the stops pulled out to make it a work of art. The models available from both Hornby and Dapol Rails of Sheffield are fully DCC ready. Although what I would say is that if you want to go down the sound route, the only real option I would recommend is the Rails Dapol Terrier, which is a little bit more expensive, but you do get that extra degree of DCC functionality with that. That includes firebox flicker and a degree of refinement to some of the other detail areas. Most notably for me, the cab glazing I thought was much more refined. That said, both of the models are pretty acceptable, and at the knockdown price that the Hornby models are available at, I think that does go some way to excuse some of the deficiencies that it has over the competition. And that's not really to take anything away from it. I love this model, and I have to say, at the time of filming, I have 2 more of these on order on their way here because I have just fallen in love with the Terrier. So it's probably a good thing that they are available at a knockdown bargain price. When it comes to DCC fitting, it has to be said that the Hornby version is very tricky. Now, in my review video of the Terrier, I did manage to fit the Train-O-Matic wired micro 6-pin decoder, but you have to be very careful how you put the wires in there to fit in the tiny space. If you want the utmost of flexibility, then really the only option is that Rails Dapol Terrier, which takes a Next 18 decoder, and that of course means that there is a lot more flexibility to be able to support sound functions in that version of the model. Both of these decoders are available through our links down in the description box from Train-O-Matic. Now the Terrier was at the actual selling price, that's just what it sells for, but the next one is one which is heavily discounted everywhere I've looked. And again, there are two offerings of this. They come from two different manufacturers, and it is the Adams Radial. Now the one that I'm holding here is the Oxford Rail version, which came out first, and of course subsequently the Hornby version came out as well. Now at the moment I'm predominantly seeing the Hornby version out there, but the Oxford Rail versions in things like East Kent Railway livery I have also seen at the same sorts of bargain prices. Now we're looking at less than half price of what was the original RRP, and I think that that does offer some great value for money for this, what is actually quite a large tank locomotive. The prototypes of these were very long lasting, with 3 actually surviving right through into BR period to work the Lim Regis branch in particular, and it was really because of their eminent suitability for that it took until the BR era for them to be able to be replaced by Western Region pannier tanks, which performed the role equally as well, and one of these locomotives was saved for preservation by the Bluebell Railway and can still be seen there today. The prices that I've seen them for range down to, well, I've seen them from some places down to £64.50, but you might have to act really quickly to pick them up at that. More normally, I've seen them at about £69.50, £70, and I still think that that is a really good price for what is actually a modern tooled locomotive to a pretty high standard. Both versions feel to me to be pretty good, although in many respects the Hornby version does edge it on the quality and finesse, and that probably reflects its higher RRP. So in many respects you could argue that the Hornby model is an even bigger bargain because it has been reduced so much further. It is a lesson that sometimes competition is not necessarily a good thing for the manufacturers, because I do get the impression that this model wasn't particularly successful for either manufacturer because of the competition from the other. It is a bit of a niche locomotive, but a beautiful one nonetheless. When it comes to DCC fitting the Adams Radial, both versions have the same 8-pin socket, and for both of these what we recommend is the Train-O-Matic wired 8-pin decoder. It offers great value for money and great functionality and is a perfect fit into both manufacturers' models. Now the next locomotive I want to turn to at number 3 in my top 5 is actually one from Halgen. It's the only Halgen locomotive in the list that I've picked today, but I do really like this model, and there's 2 versions that are available which outwardly look quite different but mechanically are very much the same underneath, and it's the GWR 1366 and 1361 class tank locomotives. Now these locomotives have a character very much to themselves. One of the few Great Western Railway tank locomotives built with outside cylinders, they do have a very distinctive look to them. Now, we reviewed this particular locomotive from the 1366 class some time ago when they first went on sale. Now, since then, the remaining ones have been dropped even further in price, and they're available now at around the £79 mark, and I think they offer great value for money. Halgen have tooled a very weighty locomotive, very powerful, and actually the DCC fitting on this is particularly easy, with a 6-pin socket easily accessible just underneath the bunker by removing the cab. What we recommend for this one is the direct plug 6-pin decoder from Train-O-Matic, and what you need to do is actually remove the cab. There's 4 screws underneath. We showed that in the review video that we did of this very locomotive, and then it's a direct plug for that DCC chip, and it's really easy to do. In terms of the rest of the detail on this model, it is finished to a very high standard. The original RRP I thought was a bit high for a tank locomotive, but they're now available at better than half price. And there's just a few liveries available, but it is the case that they do offer spectacular value for money. And if you're looking for a Great Western Railway or a Western Region shunter, then really you should look no further than these models. Don't believe all of the reviews that you see online. I think some people have had a great deal of bad luck with getting quality control fails. The version that I've got has performed faultlessly with no issues whatsoever, and indeed I've heard from a great many people who've bought both versions of this model, both the 1361 and the 1366, and say that they have had none of the problems reported by a minority of people at all in their models, so I wouldn't worry about that at all in the slightest. In my number 2 slot, we're going back to Hornby, and it's only Hornby that make a model of this locomotive. It's the J50 tank locomotive, and I have said on so many occasions that this model is a really exquisite model, especially for the money that you can now find them available for. Available in LNER livery, BR Early Crest livery and BR Late Crest livery. Hornby have put out 2 different production runs of these, so you can find 2 different identities for each of those liveries. That said, the current models that are on sale are predominantly from the most recent batch, and the ones that I've seen, we're looking at the BR Early and BR Late period liveries available in the main. And at prices ranging from £65 through to £70, you really do get a lot of locomotive for your money. Now, we have reviewed these a number of times, and I am a big fan of them. Hornby have really captured the look, shape and feel and the performance of the real locomotives ever so well. There are some detail differences between different versions, namely in terms of the coal bunker, whether it's the extended height or the regular height, but certainly the locomotive itself has a charm all to itself. Now, if you're thinking about the Lima class J50, don't bother. This is streets ahead. Throw away that old Lima model. These very much are the Rolls-Royce of the J50 world. And at the prices that they are available at, you've got an incredible good performer that is highly detailed. And at that price, they're just not going to hang around long for that. So if you haven't got one already, now is the time to jump at the chance. In terms of DCC fitting, again, it's the Trainomatic wired 8-pin decoder that will go into these. It's a really easy fit again, and just straight off after the fitting, it works perfectly. So I can't recommend that more highly. So that I have no qualms with putting in my number 2 slot in this list. Now, there are a few other locomotives that could have gone in at number 1, and I'm wondering if you may have actually guessed correctly the one that I've been thinking about for this number 1 slot, or indeed if you don't agree with any of these or there's others that you want to suggest, do please feel free to put them in the comments down below. I do love hearing from you all, and I do read every single comment, and even if I'm not able to reply to every single one, I do see them and read them and enjoy hearing from you. So do put your suggestions for maybe other bargain locomotives available brand new, ready to run, down in the comments below. Help other modelers out, just let them know where they can pick them up from as well, if there's a retailer that maybe you know about that is giving even better prices than the ones that I've been searching through. But this particular locomotive, I thought long and hard about it, and all of the previous locomotives that we've reviewed in this video are tank engines, and I know that tank engines aren't necessarily everybody's cup of tea. Of course, every layout does need at least some for shunting and small trip workings, but when it comes to a bigger locomotive, I think everybody likes having a tender locomotive or two. And there are indeed a number of really great bargains out there, and it was actually quite difficult to pick between them. I could have gone for the Bachmann K3. I thought that that's a great model, but it is starting to sell out now, even though it was available at a bargain price, and we did review one a little while ago. It's on the verge of selling out, and I thought that by the time this video goes out, there was a risk that actually I'd be extolling the virtues of a locomotive that you guys couldn't find at the kind of prices that I was talking about. So I turned instead to a model which is still out there in sizable quantities across a great number of different retailers, and I turned to the Hornby J15. This locomotive, I think, is very much the undersung hero of one of the previous year's Hornby ranges. It's got a die-cast boiler providing an awful lot of weight and traction, and it's got the facility for ease of sound fitting with the DCC decoder socket in the tender. Now, whilst Hornby don't actually do a TTS sound decoder for a J15, the locomotive is set up to take a TTS sound decoder, so if you're not too fussy, there may be other TTS decoders that will be a perfect fit and give you the sounds that you crave without necessarily being 100% accurate. We recommend for standard DCC fitting going for the Trainomatic wired 8-pin decoder. You obviously hear a lot about that decoder, and it is the stalwart of the range. It fits so many models perfectly and offers great value for money. When we reviewed this locomotive, I believe we did do a DCC fitting guide as well, so it is ridiculously easy to chip these tender locomotives from Hornby. The performance of this locomotive is really good, and I've seen them down to around £69 from a number of different retailers, not just the one that we've got a link to down in the description box below. Available with a number of different identities, with both late and early BR crests and also LNER livery. This very much is the workhorse of any layout, and I think that at the prices available, again, get them whilst you can, because they're not going to hang around at that price. And once they're gone, you're going to look back and think, why didn't I pick up any of these locomotives whilst they were available at these bargain prices? Because I'm afraid that unfortunately the upward trend on prices is only ever going to go upwards. And I have noticed that the sales do seem to be more and more Spartan over what I remember in previous years. I can remember trolling through the bargains page on a number of big retailers and it extending to literally thousands of items, and now not quite so much. So get these bargains whilst they're there, because they're not going to be around forever. Do you agree with my top 5 choices? Certainly I think there's going to be a lot of debate over this one. If you know of another great bargain out there ready to run from a retailer, and really not just one-offs but something that they do have plenty of stock of, do let other modelers know in the comments down below. Help a fellow modeler out by letting them know where they can get bargain priced locomotives from, and indeed rolling stock, because I think we're all in this together. The whole community as a whole needs to help each other out and make sure that everybody knows where the bargains really are at. But all of these locomotives are fine choices, and there's a lot of others, it has to be said, that I could have picked from. The K3 from Bachmann, the K1 from Hornby as well, the 42XX, 52XX, both of those 280 tank locomotives are available at some bargain prices in BR liveries. I have seen them. But then of course there's the venerable ex-Lancashire and Yorkshire Pug. And if we were to stray into diesel locomotives, an honorary mention would have to be given to the Ruston 48DS, which is also available for some amazing prices out there. So really there are quite a few choices out there, and I'd love to hear from you what you think would be your personal top 5. Well, I hope you found that video informative. Don't forget that each of these locomotives that I've talked about today, you can find them at the affiliate links down in the description box down below at what we believe to be a really reasonable price. Also, don't forget to tickle that like button, show your appreciation for the channel, and share on social media, on Facebook, on Twitter, you name it. Put the word out there of the videos that we're making here. It always goes a huge way to help support the channel and keep it growing. And if you haven't already done so, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and you'll be the first to know about new videos as and when they go up. But until next time, this is me, Jenny Kirk, saying you take really great care of yourself, and I look forward to seeing you again. Bye for now. Today's video is sponsored by Trainomatic, makers of DCC decoders designed to be fully compatible with every manufacturer's locomotive. Visit train-o-matic.com to browse the full range and see what they've got suitable for you. I'd like to send out a huge thanks to everybody who supports me on Patreon, and an extra special huge thanks goes out to Anthony Kidson, Michael Churchwood, Anthony Hunt, William Wade, Wayne Johns, Offshore Allen, oorail.co.uk, Tepic, Michael Lockie, Helen Sink, Peter Bolton, Brian Smith, Brian and Dorothy Mudd, Gary Lewis, David Quinn, Trish Bits, Sparky 107107, George Botterini, Andy Finch, Chris Moss, Robert Sears, MD of San Juan Model Company and Grant Line Products, and Judge Mortis. Thank you. Without you guys, I couldn't do this.